All right, mic is live.
All right. We're getting coached by Nate virtually.
The community is online.
Oh, Nate has come. That is nice having Nate at home.
Right.
One nice thing. Other bad things, but
There are many bad things about me not being here, but
yeah.
We have been missed. That's the first.
It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks. YouTube's up.
So,
all right.
Instagram is up.
We just need Snapchat and TikTok. We'll be good to go.
You're good on
We're ready to rock.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Sorry if we missed 2 weeks. I was definitely sick for one of them.
We have muted, right?
And then I don't know what was going on last week. Nate was off.
But we are alive. Yes.
We're alive, and we're still dealing with illness here. So Nick will be stepping in for Nate this week with a different set of skills.
I will not be
and
taking
information.
Don't
Yeah. But anyways, as always, this is the 034 Motorsport Live Chat. This is episode 141. Actually, it's about to say that. We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034 Motorsport. If you would like us to chime in on any piece of automotive knowledge that you've ever had, feel free. We're also happy to discuss other topics too. And I actually like getting questions about history or about what we think or the best this or that. Those are always fun to answer as well. We take a no BS approach to responding to these questions. Just put your question into the browser of your choice. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram currently. And we have some questions coming in already. So someone is asking, I can't wait till you come out with the new features such as advanced launch control and flame map for the B9 series. We are very far along to releasing something for advanced launch control. We are taking into account customer feedback about throwing flames because the B9 3.0T is a turbo application. We can't use necessarily the same strategy as we do on the supercharged motor, which doesn't need to build any boost because it's supercharged and connected to the crankshaft. So the turbo, we will want to use a different strategy for launching than we would, and it won't necessarily create lots of flames and popping. But there is certainly a way to do that doesn't necessarily give you a faster or better launch, and so we'll have to figure out what we want to do. Substantively, advanced launch control does not need or shouldn't be producing flames and pops, but it is really cool, so we get it. Who's the guy on the right? A 034 model? That must be you, right?
I'm usually an N, so this is a little different for me.
Yep. His name is Nick. And he's our marketing man. Oh, yeah, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Javad Shadzi. This is Nick Mercadante, who's our marketing manager. Why can my 3.0T only run E40 and not E85?
I'm going to take it that's a B8 or B8.5 3 liter, right? Supercharged?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, on the supercharged version, we only offer E40. It's because fuel system flow limitation on that engine with the pump and injector setup that it comes with. E40 is really the highest amount of E-content that you can run and still make maximum peak power. Now, we could create or offer an E85 file. It would produce less power because the fuel system is able to produce overall less fuel at E85 than on E40. This is related to the fact that E85 is not as efficient of a fuel, so it does not produce as much energy as gasoline. It's about 20 to 30% less. So as a result, you need to use 20 or 30% more and then it taxes the fuel system even more. Thinking about getting into a C7, C7.5 RS7. Is this a reliable platform? What do you think, Nick?
I would say that they've been pretty reliable over time. The ZF8s and those are really robust and can take a lot of torque. Earlier C7s and the 4-liter twins in general did have a oil screen issue in the PCV where those would degrade or even send themselves into the turbocharger, which would require you to get a new turbo. So that is one thing to keep in mind with those cars. The stock turbos can run into that problem, but overall they make great power. Pretty darn reliable with that said.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the oil screen issue is the biggest thing I've heard of. Otherwise, they're really solid.
The engine mounts are pretty terrible.
Yeah. We do offer some upgrades for those where needed. But if you get one, I would recommend either having the factory. I think there was some type of recall.
There was a TSB last year,
and there are some aftermarket companies that came with different types of screening on kits with different oil lines. But I believe the factory fix is solid.
Seemingly, yeah.
Welcome back. Any plans for at least a stage 1 tune for 4MQ7? Would love a little extra oomph for my demo wheel. Absolutely. You're in luck. This is not a very popular market. Probably not a lot of business there, but since I own one, I'm definitely pushing for it, and we are working on it. So definitely stay tuned. The goal will be to offer most of the stages to get up even into stage 2 e-blended fuels and pretty much maximum power for the 3.0T. That is a CREC motor, so it's actually a nice platform to produce more power.
12 injectors are always a
you already got the secondary injectors, some other parts. The one issue on those is the supercharged pulley clutch mechanism, which sometimes doesn't hold at higher loads. Any perceived or actual issues one might experience running any of the B9 tunes in cold weather, sub-freezing, etc.? What do you think, Nick?
No, we test these cars in freezing and sub-freezing temperatures, either here locally when we go up to the mountains and through some beta testers, and we've not seen any issues with these cars. Even on ethanol files, we do the calibrations to make sure it works in all of those temperature ranges. You just want to get the car up to temperature now and again if you're in very cold climates to make sure that you're burning off any water accumulation in the oil.
Yeah, I mean, we basically keep all the factory ECU calibration strategies to deal with cold weather. Most of the tuning changes relate to the higher load, higher power conditions of turning the boost up and dealing with that. But there have been some issues that were created through some of the calibration changes, and we've made updates and fixes for the cold weather tuning
A year and a half ago.
Yeah. Hey guys, do I need to change my B9.5 RS5's fuel lines to run your Stage 1 Plus tune with the 85? And does your tune work for a 2021 RS5, or is it still locked? You definitely don't need to do anything with your lines. That car, as with all Audis, are E85 compatible right from the factory. As far as the later stuff,
we aren't currently able to flash some of the really late 2023s. It's like the RS5 competition, but the 2021 we can flash both ECU and TCU side. There's no problems there.
Yeah.
And to be clear, they are ethanol compatible in the sense that the fuel system deteriorate if you put ethanol in it. From the factory, you can't just go put ethanol in on stock tune. And run. But the system itself won't fall if you put ethanol inside.
Yeah, he's asking specifically about the fuel.
Yes.
Those do not need to change. No. I think if you had like a car maybe made in the 70s or 80s, maybe the really early 90s, but basically B5 era, mid 90s forward for sure, everything's compatible.
if you want to confirm if your box code is covered and available, you can email us at tuning@034motorsport.com, and we can look through and make sure before you purchase or before you put any mods on, make sure that we got you covered.
That's always the case. If you ever have a question about anything, just email tuning. Hey, my stage 1 E85 AY S3 is too fast. What should I do? I think
Go stage 2, so you learn how much further you can go.
stage 2, or I think probably the most next exciting thing would be doing cocaine. So you can look into that.
We'll go together.
It's illegal, but I don't think it's a good idea to
He didn't
drive and do cocaine.
He didn't specify what country. So
Right
it
here.
could be. Oh, that's well, it's not legal in America. So
Virginia.
From Charles, when's that Mark 8 R carbon fiber intake drop? We're looking like 3 to 4 weeks or so. It's in the handoff process and in the process of being released. So very soon.
that'll be our S34, right? The sheet.
Yeah, it'll be an S34. Very open, very high flowing. That design is just the intake, a huge hose right to the turbo inlet, a huge turbo inlet.
Fantastic.
Very, very nice flowing, good sounding setup. Hey gents, glad to have you back this week. I missed you guys for sure. Oh, thank you. We missed you as well. I actually really like doing these. I miss doing them when we skip them. I had a question about the logs. B8 platform, the cylinders 0 through 5 numbers we see, are those actual cylinders or based on ignition order?
So I think that's going to be within our data logger itself. If
I don't know the answer to this.
That's one of those ones where since Nate's not here, I can't.
This would be a good Nate. Maybe Nate can message him.
You can always email tuning@034motorsport.com for help with reviewing your logs.
Well, that's a good question for this platform as well.
Yeah.
We'll follow up. Maybe Nate can chime in.
We'll see if we get paid.
When will we see cooling modifications for the B9? It's going to be a little bit. We're still working on that. For now, it's not a huge issue, but it's definitely going to be needed to continue to push the power and for like really hot track driving and things like that. So we'll keep you guys posted. You guys have an ETA on pre-sale for the cams on the 3.0 T yet? I remember y'all saying that as soon as it hits the water for shipping, give me a no BS approach. Always. So we are looking, we are going to be doing a pre-buy that's probably going to be in May. We want them to be finished and shipping from Scandinavia, essentially. And we just want to know that they're on the water and they're on the way. So as soon as that's ready, we will do it. There's a comment from one of the guys that this is not going to be $1,000 upgrade. You're talking about 4 camshafts, billet machined camshafts. So it's going to be much more than that, but still a very reasonably priced upgrade. 4 cams cost, you can't go around buying cams for $250 these days, unfortunately. So we will release pricing when it comes closer, but I think they're going to be in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, packaged with springs and retainers, because that is a necessary part of it. Springs and retainers are not cheap. You're pushing $1,000 just for those. So pricing is very reasonable. It's consistent with Cat Cam's pricing on their other cams as well. And then you don't even want to know how much tooling, testing, and stuff costs. We're talking about 6 figures. So we have to make a little bit extra to pay back those initial costs as well. But if you want another around 30 horsepower with even more potential on higher stage tunes, this is the best option at this point. Extends the power band, no loss of power down low. It's kind of all wins. Yeah. So hopefully we can release a group buy in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but it won't be till we're actually ready to do it. But that's a good estimate at this point. Can you describe how to best set up advanced launch control on my C7 3.0 T? stage 2 single pulley with your 7,200 RPM shift file.
Right. So since he's a ZF8 car, it's a little different than the B8s with the DSG. So you can't actually set the advanced launch set point higher than what the maximum stall speed is on your car. And that'll change on dual pulley ratio for single and what stage. So he's probably somewhere in the 31 to 3,300 RPM stall point. So you can use advanced launch control to lower the RPM launch point to best maximize for traction. If you were to set it to 33, that's going to be all the torque that you can leave with. If you were going to set it a little lower, you can reduce wheel spin for maybe a slipperier road or something like that. So for you, I would say go out, launch with it off just the maximum stall speed that you can run, see how it does. If it hooks up and goes, then fantastic. You can set your advanced launch point to 33, 34 and be good to go. If you need to dial it back a bit to reduce some wheel spin, then you can play with that in increments of 100 RPM.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When is the mobile app launching? We do not have a launch date, but we are very far along. It's being worked on every day by our in-house software engineering team.
We do have a beta in the next couple months that we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming soon. We will release more information on the availability. We are currently beta testing it with some really close beta test customers. We'll open that up more as we feel better about the product and we get closer to releasing it, just so we can have some additional stress testing on it. But it's coming soon, and it'll be very exciting. And it's a very, very cool mobile app with a lot of great functionality. Are there benefits doing just cams valve train on the B9 without touching the bottom end? Would you suggest to start purchasing your internals in preparation for more power?
Cam on the B9. I'm assuming this is 3 liter or 2.9 liter.
Yeah. I mean, we are working on cams for those. I'm not sure I don't believe there's anything available currently. Valve springs and retainers are pretty much the same for all these motors, so you could do that. But I don't know. I mean, I think right now at the power levels that are possible, I think it's good to focus on the bottom end, head studs, and rods for sure.
Yep.
While you're in there, you may as well do the main studs that we have. Eventually, cams will, you can add that to the mix to make even more horsepower. There is valve float on these motors, but we have not optimized a tune for valve float. So currently, our tuning and anyone else's, frankly, right now, should take into account the factory valve float issue, and the tune is going to be specific to that. But a valve train upgrade, valve spring retainer upgrade that reduces valve flow, you wouldn't see the full potential of that without the right tuning. So there's a lot that we do to work around the fact that there's valve flow to still create the most power possible. So I think it's going to go even further with a specific tune for that. We're not seeing motors blowing up or anything, but these motors are right. They're within hollering distance, so to speak, of the limits. So I think if you want to get serious about B9 3.0T power, building the bottom is really smart right now. Love my 034 tune. You all do great work. Thank you very much. That's what we love to hear. What's your opinion on square versus reverse staggered tire setups on the golf platform for reducing understeer? You have any opinion on that, Nick?
The RS3 is one of, I would call it a golf platform, as much as folks don't want to admit that.
Absolutely.
Did come from the factory with a staggered setup where you could do square 255s all around, or you could do staggered square 245s or staggered 255 in the front, 235 in the rear. You can step that up a bit in diameter as well. I personally prefer a square setup, and then would make my adjustments for my handling from my alignment to make things even. But I do know a lot of folks that really like the reverse stagger because you get so much front end tire grip.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the biggest negative is you're stuck with front and rear tires, so you can't rotate. So even if you're at the track and you're seeing a lot of wear, you can't do anything about that. And with you, Nick, that I don't believe a staggered setup is necessary to generate the best handling. That can be done with suspension settings and tuning. I personally prefer not to do it. I think on a rear wheel drive car or a car like an R8, you literally cannot put 305s all around.
Right.
So and you really need that traction in the back because so much of the power is going back there. The MQB platform is designed to have the same size tires all around. You don't necessarily have a lot more clearance in one part, one end of the car to the other, like you do in an R8, for example. And it really can't hurt. If you got a 255 up front, it can't hurt to have a 255 in the rear. You can totally compensate for that with alignment settings and spring and sway bar settings. So I would avoid it, and I think if you wear out your front tires and you don't have the option to rotate, I think that's a worse position to be in. But people do it. It's not a new thing. I remember in the 90s, I worked with a guy who had an S3 and had bigger tires in the front than the back because he thought that's what it needed, And this is all kind of based on this idea that there's more weight in the front than the rear. The power is being driven through the front. But you may as well put the same tires on. And actually, the back always has more clearance than the front because the wheels aren't turning.
Right.
So you don't have the fender clearance issues that you get in the front. So I would say it's kind of a BSy thing. Just get the same size tires all around.
Yeah.
But you can certainly do it.
Yeah, I mean, depends what you're using the car for. If you're only on autocross, you just want the car to be spinning around all the time, and you need to put down the traction. That might be a good reason for
you. Any developments on 2022 plus TCU tunes?
So that's the locked boot.
Yeah, that'd be a good question for Nate. It is something we're working on. Right now, I'm not aware of anyone who's totally cracked it. So you'll see that once it is cracked, it spread pretty quickly to the rest of the industry as well. Why should I consider 034's 8BS3 tune over IEs when they have more power and a stage 3 that can make 490 on ethanol? We don't have a stage 3 that we've released. However, I'm not sure that they actually make more power. They have dyno charts that say different things than ours, but I've never seen evidence. That's true. We do have the R460, which is a stage 3 triple kit. So yeah, you're right. It comes down to who you want to work with and what tune you want to have on your car. 034 has our own. I've never driven an IE S3 tune, so I can't speak to specific differences. But we speak continually about our tuning philosophy, about our engineering processes, our attention to drivability, to reliability, safety, and also maximizing power. So we have many happy customers on these tunes. But if IE offers something that allows you to an upgrade path that we don't currently have, then that's something to consider in making your decision. Do you have anything to add to that, man?
No, not in particular. I would say it comes down to what you want to do with your car, and if there's a specific goal that you have for your car, you can reach out to us and we can talk through whether or not our software is the right fit for what you're looking for.
Yeah. Someone asked, mixing it up, best stereo audiophile setup for a beginner. Looking at Elac, NAD, Audiotechnica. So Elac, I would say as far as speakers go, Elac is a great option. Very affordable speakers, tremendous value. incredibly well engineered. Most of the Elac US products are engineered by Andrew Jones, who's a friend of mine, arguably the best, most well-respected speaker designer alive right now on Earth. And as far as amps and electronics, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. Even some of these like receivers from Denon and Tech, I don't know, Technics isn't around, but Denon and Onkyo and things like that, they're really nice, and they come with a lot of bells and whistles. I'm not familiar with any of the recent NAD stuff, but Emotiva's got some really good stuff, which is, say, high-end quality for reasonable prices. I'm not really into records, so I stream through music apps now, like Tidal. But I think there's a lot of good record players out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I believe in record players and then go to Bluetooth for a speaker. It just feels like the whole concept of what you're trying to keep there as far as the sound quality is a little.
Yeah. Well, I just came from Expo Audio Show where there's like $500,000 record players that are just like, they weigh thousands of pounds. It's insane.
How much better does it sound than your iPhone?
Oh gosh, that's the thing is with the records, they do have a certain type of sound. There's a certain amount of distortion, and there's a very characteristic sound that record players make. And then there's digital, which also has a different sound character. That's arguably more accurate, but if you're looking for that vintage kind of warm record sound, then that's what you gotta listen to. And then people just get really crazy with it. I don't know how much better a $500,000 record player sounds than a $2,000 one.
ECS gave us a little shout out. How's it going,
sweet.
guys? Staying warm in Ohio?
Cheers. No, I just came from Chicago and it was snowing.
Bundle up.
I have an Elac 5.2.4 system in my living room. Anyone who's ever heard it is always very impressed. Yeah, not surprised. 034 motor mounts compared to OEM and Y. Be interesting to know which application it's being referred to.
Right.
But all of our motor mounts, like our density line motor mounts, are basically factory mounts that have been upgraded with stiffer rubber and re-engineered voids to make the mount higher performance and better controlling of your drivetrain and longer lasting than the factory OEM mounts. So in every case, we would recommend our street density mounts for the average person.
That's why. How about that?
But so the factory mount on this particular application, there's a big void right here that's filled with hydraulic fluid, and then there's some valving where the fluid is supposed to squish between these two chambers to dampen the movement of the mount. But the problem is that's just not a very robust setup, and so eventually the mount develops a leak, all the fluid leaks out, and the mount collapses on itself. And that's very common with all the Volkswagen Audi. Same with this one. In the factory, there's a big void here filled with fluid, and then all the valving is down here in the bottom of the mount. So the factory mounts wear out very quickly, sometimes 10, 15, 20,000 miles. These mounts, the 034 street density mounts, is pretty much a lifetime product. Once you put it in your car, you'll never have to change it again. And that's the case for most of our density line mounts. In the B8, B9 application, it's certainly true. So if you want to ask specifically about a particular application, let us know.
Yep.
And then we have our motorsport line, which are just virtually indestructible, high performance racing motorsport grade mounts. I was wondering if the ZTF wheels for the B9 S4 will fit if it has 18Z or 17Z calipers.
Absolutely. Yeah, the 18x8.5s or the 18x9 3s to make our Defender setup. would fit those calipers without problem. They can accept it to 375, which is pretty spicy. So you should have no problem with 18Z.
Are you going to release the 18-inch wheels that you broke the B9 S4, B9 RS5 world record on? Yeah, that will. Those are our flow form 18 by 9.3, and it's something that we will release in the future.
Right.
Thoughts, and that's why we had those wheels, because they're prototypes.
Right. Test wheels.
Thoughts on efficiency performance gains from a ram air headlight intake on the B9?
I think I know who's we have a customer of ours who installed one on his car and found significant flow improvements over his previous intake setup. However, until it's something that we've played with, we can't really speak for what the difference are.
The theory behind ram air intakes is that you have an intake that at speed air is forced into it, which creates a type of positive pressure. If that positive pressure can go and overcome any kind of pressure drop restrictions in the intake, then it makes up for it. It's sort of like turbocharging your intake system, where the turbocharger is pressurizing your intake manifold. This idea is you can create some amount of pressure. The factory airbox, this is something that factory cars have released. The Dodge has a ram air brand, and they've had it for years. Nothing new. That there's like a scoop on the hood, so once the car hits a certain speed, actually the faster it goes, the more pressure is created. The factory Audi intakes do have some type of effect to this. So there is a scoop in the front fascia and the radiator grille that sees positive pressure at speed. Overall, I don't think you're gonna. We don't really test this, or haven't done much with like validating any of this. But my null hypothesis, my gut would be that it's really not worth messing with, because you're dealing with a turbo application, and the ratio of pressure being created after the turbocharger is so much higher than anything you could create on the inlet. You're talking about the turbos producing 20 to 30 pounds of boost, and the most you could hope on a ram air setup would be like tenths of psi. So it's really probably not worth it. It probably can't hurt if you don't fuck the flow up too bad. And you also have to really validate all this stuff with testing, because air does not move how we think it does. I think we have a very simplistic view of how air moves and flows. And so you have to be careful. If you create what you think is a ram air setup, it could actually develop a resonance at certain speeds, and it could actually reduce the flow. So just because you created this thing on your car that feels like it gulps in air and pressurizes it, doesn't mean it actually is. It's actually not too hard to test with some pretty basic, logging equipment, but it's probably more than the casual kind of, thumb in the air approach, to guess at like what's going to work and what doesn't. So that would be you're probably not going to hurt anything with it, but you could. And I think before anyone goes out and claims, big benefits, they should back up with some data. Noob to this platform, am I able to data log with your software?
Yeah, so we have data logging tools available for any amount of support needs you might have. So if you want to make sure your car's running as it should, or you feel like it might not be running as it should, you can email tuning at 034 and set you up with our logging system. But it's not really one of those things that's user interfaced for just someone to go play around and collect data for the sake of data.
It's for us to support you as a customer. So if you have a problem or a concern with your tuning, we will use logging as a support tool to get to the bottom of what's going on. But the next point is it's not for you to log and just to see what's going on. So for now, at this time, it is a diagnostic tool that our tuning and calibration customer service team uses. Right. Since your car's not here, we have a remote way to do this.
Right. And a more user-friendly based version of this is something we've been kicking around and Might be part of the mobile app that, yeah, in the future.
Yeah, it's something we have to think about. No one else really offers, really advanced logging for your own entertainment or information either. So and there's reasons for it. I don't know. When you buy a hot dog, the manufacturer does not provide a lab report of everything that's in that hot dog. If you knew that you were eating, cow udders and cow buttholes, and it was in a lab report of the percent of cow butthole that was in your hot dog, you probably wouldn't eat hot dogs anymore. So this is something that we all face as challenges of we engineer and create and manufacture products, and we release as much information and data as we choose to as a private company. There's no regulations or requirements for us to provide any information whatsoever, but we want customers to be able to make informed decisions. So we produce and publish as much data as we feel is useful and necessary for the customers to make an informed choice. But we do find that the more information and data customers get a hold of, the more chance for misunderstanding and obsessing about things that aren't necessarily understood comes into play. So you have eaten many cow buttholes and you thought they were delicious. But that's not because you knew you were eating cow buttholes. You were eating a delicious form of meat. And right now you get in your car and you drive it and it melts your face off and you're happy. But then you start logging and doing, and we see this when customers they'll go to the local dyno or something. Then it can start with that. Or they'll pull up, Vacom and start looking at stuff and all questions. And they don't necessarily understand what they're looking at.
Right. Not because anything that they'll see is wrong.
No, nothing.
They just don't generally have an understanding of what it all means, and then can very easily get confused and create a completely different idea than what the reality is. I did not have cow butthole on my live stream analogy bingo though, so thank you for winning.
And it's the same thing with the customer. There's actually nothing wrong with eating cow buttholes. They're healthy. Your body processes just like any other calorie, but
don't even limit it to cow.
Well, on top of beef buttholes, there's chicken buttholes and the other, blended poultry. Chicken beaks, feet. I did see on YouTube the other day of a woman somewhere in Asia preparing a cow udder for like a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, it was the teats were in the pan. It's big teats. All the nipples sticking out. Ended up producing a delicious looking meal. And then it made me realize we've been eating cow udders. Because, you don't see them in the U.S. Like, where are they all going?
That's a good point.
It's like 20 pounds of meat. Goes right in the hot dog.
Send a $5 gift card to anyone that can figure out where the cow buttholes are going.
Hot dogs, lips and assholes.
McDonald's.
Probably.
Could I pre-order the S34 intake for the B9 SQ5? No, we're not doing a pre-sale for that. And in general, we stay away from those because they are a gateway of pain, disappointment, and angst for customers everywhere. We are going to do it with the cams, and we do them occasionally on a limited basis. But what we find is we put the products on the shelf, we list them for sale, and people buy them. We ship them usually 1 or 2 days, 1 day or same day to 2 days from the time of order. Everybody's happy. You see a lot of smaller companies who use pre-buys as a way to raise cash to pay for the products they're selling you. We use our own money, don't worry, and we put it on the shelf. We don't make you, help out with that. So my advice would be, keep your money, and then as soon as we release it, jump in and buy one, and just keep an eye on our social media. Make sure you're on our email list if you're not. There's some questions coming in about the high pressure fuel pump recall, so we'll address that real quick. We sent out emails to anyone who purchased our new Mark 8 high pressure fuel pump, Mark 7 high pressure fuel pump last week. And so an issue has arisen with some pumps where they basically don't relieve pressure under light load conditions. So there's a fuel pressure bypass that is not functioning within what the factory ECU is expecting to see. So pressure is staying higher than it should be, and then not coming down quick enough. And this is related to the tuning and calibration of the bypass check valve in the pump. So when the fuel pump goes off load, the fuel on the outlet has nowhere to go because the injectors stop opening. And so you get a spike of pressure inside the pump. This spike of pressure is relieved through a bypass back to the low pressure side of the pump. However, again, ours apparently was not tested and calibrated properly at the factory. And so we are in the process of getting more pumps that have the correct bypass, calibration on the valve, and we will be replacing all pumps that have been purchased so far with these new verified pumps. We apologize for the oversight. This did not show up in our testing. Not all the pumps will throw a check engine light or a code. Some, are more outside of range than others. This is not related to any type of failure, catastrophic failure. The car can go into limp mode if the overpressure is high enough, so that could cause you a problem where you'd have to restart your car. And I think we've had 2 or 3 customers have that issue. So for anyone who has bought the pump and not installed it, we've asked you to not install it and hang tight while we get correctly tested and functioning units. If you have installed it, we recommend that you put your stock pump back in and put whatever appropriate tuning you need to run the stock pump. And in some cases, if you need additional help or you're in an emergency kind of situation where you really need a high flow pump, please contact our customer service, and we have some options for people like that as well. So really sorry about this. We test these products to the best of our ability. The last thing we ever want is for this, anything like this to happen. Again, thankfully, this is not like some of the failures that other companies have seen where the pumps are just literally exploding. We've had no failures like that, no loss of functionality of the pump. The pumps are operating and creating pressure beautifully. We have 100% reliability of all pumps that have been installed and are running. But it's this check engine light and the potential to have an EPC event that is driving this change. So we are working with the manufacturer to get corrected pumps, and there's just the calibration of this valve and when it opens at what RPM, which kind of determines the pressure and flow. You don't want it to open too soon. You don't want it to open too late. So it's been actually kind of tricky to calibrate this. But as soon as we have new pumps, which we're moving very quickly to do, we will be contacting customers with next steps and replacing these pumps. All right. If you have any more questions specifically, feel free to drop a question in here, or as always, contact customer service. You should have an email if you haven't gotten it yet. If you haven't seen an email and you've bought one of these, please check your spam folder. That's a real common problem these days.
Yep.
We've also made public announcements about this.
If you purchased through a dealer, reach out to us
Yeah.
as well. The dealer should be contacting you, but if you haven't heard from anyone yet, shoot us an email and we can get you taken care of.
And we are working with some of our dealers too who've had past experience with this to get their feedback and confirmation as well.
We've got like 5 other mobile flashing questions again in the last 20 minutes. We discussed it at the beginning of the chat. It's coming along. We're currently testing internally. It's flashing cars, iPhone and Android, tablet and iPad, the whole shebang. So be on the lookout in the next couple months. Yeah.
Someone's asking, how much horsepower are your street density Mark IV motor mounts good for? So our Mark IV motor mount and transmission mounts, that particular architecture of mount our mount is not really any stronger than the factory one. I think it will hold up fine on cars even with 400 or 500 horsepower. The challenge with all these, you know, factory style OEM mounts is under like really high stress launching conditions. That's when those mounts break and fail. So, you know, if you want to do more launching and really abusive types of driving, speed shifting, slamming, you know, lots of horsepower into the motor instantaneously, I strongly recommend our motorsport mounts. Those are virtually indestructible. I don't believe I've ever had substantive failure of that mount on any of the applications. We'll grab them here. And so those, I don't know what the horsepower limit is on that. I think your transmission, whatever your case is probably going to rip off first. So that's our Mark IV style motor and trans mount. So there is still rubber. It's not a solid mount, but you will feel a lot of NVH with this, especially on a 4-cylinder. But your chance of breaking any of this billet is pretty much zero. Again, you're bolted into a cast aluminum transmission case, so that's probably going to be the failure point at that time. At that point.
Yep.
Let's keep going. Some of these update questions, let's move on from. Can you put 034 motorsport sway bars on lowered cars? Absolutely. Definitely within reason, you know, within the 1 to 2 inch range, not a problem. Now, if you're slammed like with air ride and stuff, you're going to likely max out the range on the end links, the articulation range on the end links, and this is going to be a problem with factory end links too. So I would say once you get to like lowering more than 2 inches, you are going to have to carefully, you know, lower the car and watch all the different suspension pivot points to see is anything binding or bottoming out. You know, and so is the end link going and then hitting here, and it just can't, and then you're just lowering more and just putting a tremendous amount of pressure on.
This came up because there was a post this weekend where someone had an SQ5 lowered about 5 inches.
Okay, so this is I was going to mention this. So the one time I've seen this repeatedly is on SQ5s,
B8 specifically.
B8 SQ5s, and what happens is when you lower past a certain point, and we sell lowering springs for the car. It lowers the car an inch or two, and all of our parts are, what is it?
I think 2.
Is it about 2?
So start, you know, this guy.
Yeah. All of our parts are compatible, you know, with each other. But if you're going to lower 5 inches, what happens is there is a bolt going into the rear cast control arm, and the end link binds. You keep lowering, and so you create this incredible shearing, you know, pulling force, and the M10 bolt snaps. That's a big bolt. You could torque that to 50 pound-feet of torque, and that ends up breaking. The end link is so strong that the end link doesn't fail. The factory end link would normally fail, but since these are usually used with our end links, it just snaps the head off. An M10 bolt, grade 10 bolt. So you just, in every case this happens, we speak to the customers, and it turns out they're dumping the car.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to lower that far, you're not really going to be able to run any sway bar in the market that I'm aware of, including the factory one. But you're going to have to design something with a lot more articulation or different geometry altogether.
Yeah. And that's the cost of looking for added performance. You know, you do need to strike a balance at some point between performance and aesthetic. And sometimes the aesthetic you want means you can't get the performance that you're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, everyone's going to be within the range of operation. It's not going to be a problem. But if you're really looking for this super stance look, the performance options that we make aren't really going to suit that specific setup.
I would equate to this as like, wearing 5-inch heels. If that's the look you want, great, but you can barely walk.
You can't run a marathon.
You can barely walk, But if you want 5-inch heels, that's the look you're going for, then don't try to walk too fast.
Right.
So our products are not for that. We're not here to support people who want to lower their car for 5 inches. we're here to support people who want to lower the center of gravity of their vehicle, make it look better, and have it handle substantially better than factory, and have a great time driving their car.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Try to hack through some of this.
Let's get rid of some of those update questions at the same time. Are you guys still making any B8.5 S4 parts, or are you more focused on B9?
Yes, we are.
That's a ridiculous question. We are still releasing B8 products. We are still innovating in that platform. We're also doing it for B9. We're still doing it for Mark 7. We're doing it for Mark 8.
Miraculously, we can design more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, so I think people see us doing, a lot for one thing, and they assume we're not doing it for the other. That's not true. We support all these applications. Right.
And remember, just because there's 20 new B9 launches doesn't mean the catalog for B8 doesn't already have those same products. So, a lot of times we've done so much for these catalogs. So look deeply through and see if we have already what you're looking for. And if there's something else you're looking for, you can reach out to us. We'd be happy to hear what you want.
Someone asked a question about our oil caps. These are our new Billet Oil Caps. These are done in conjunction with our partner Racing Line, who has their own version of this product on the market. This is just a nice, beautiful billet oil cap that it's more durable and a stronger oil cap product. This is the last oil cap you'll ever need to put on your car. Maybe you need to change this gasket out every 10 years or something like that. But they're beautiful. They're branded with our branding. We offer them for full range of applications, including kind of the B8 Audis and comparable. And these are for a lot of the MQB chassis cars. 2 liters and Daza and things like that.
Gen 3, Gen 4, I believe.
We do not recommend this oil cap for B9. We are coming out with a B9 specific one. Just the way the Audi uses the same oil cap on both. It fits tight on the B8s. On the B9s, it's not. So we are working on a version that will install tighter than the factory unit. These do not add horsepower. We don't say they do. This is mostly a vanity product. It's a nice, beautiful part that you can put in your engine bay. It is functional, but
it holds oil where it should.
It's not going to increase the driving. You're not going to notice any differences in driving a car with this oil cap.
You will have all the placebo effects.
Yeah, you can placebo yourself as much as you'd like. Now that doesn't mean, as someone on YouTube was recently like, "Oh, you said it doesn't do any performance, so it's a bullshit product." It's like, well, no, it's not a bullshit product. This is a billet aluminum oil cap that's very functional. It's beautifully finished with our logo. If you take pride in your engine compartments and your car and you want to improve the quality of various components, it absolutely does that. So it's not bullshit. We're just being honest that it doesn't increase the power or performance of your engine in any way. That doesn't make it bullshit. It just means we're being honest about it.
Bullshit generally is something when we're saying it's one thing, but it's actually another thing.
To deceive.
Right. We are honestly portraying what these are. And these do, in some cases actually serve a purpose. We just had a guide message here saying the stock oil cap blew off on this B9 SQ5 and you replace the PCV hoses and cap. Yeah. So, there is a case in some instances for this, and that's why we mentioned it specifically for those, not these.
Please bring billet motor mounts to market for the B9 platform. We are working on that.
Getting closer there.
I'm stage 3 on my B9 S4 with the TTE 710. Just have to say I love it. Only have ever ran E85 or E60, and I daily it as well. It drives exactly like when I bought it with the same refinement, just way faster. Awesome to hear. That's it. That's a really nice testament. Thank you.
It's fantastic.
That's what we work hard to do. Any plans to release a fully assembled high-pressure fuel pump for the B9 300T platform? For the time being, we don't have plans for that. We will continue to offer the internal piston upgrades, and that's been going. The full pumps are very expensive to do, and we're doing it on some applications now, but we'll see. Probably not. Is the sway bar worth it for the B9 RS5? Yes. It's a very key component to making that car handle better and be more fun to drive.
Yeah, the full kit is truly a transformation. The rear only bar is good, nice middle ground, but the full kit's incredible.
Have you guys experimented with the Merc Racing supercharger for the 3.0 supercharged platform? No, but we are in contact with them and we do plan on supporting it. So I think we're waiting for them to be able to provide us a kit that we can then evaluate and do some tuning on.
Correct.
Any way to remove the advanced launch lag on the B8.5 or even shorten the lag?
That's when you lift off the brake before it accelerates. That's the time it takes for the clutches to engage at the end of the day. That's a function of the system. That isn't a lag in the sense of the word. It's just the system works. There will be a time it takes for the control to engage. No, there really isn't anything to do there.
There's I don't believe that there's a way to speed that up anymore. That's already been done.
Right. We've done optimizations, but what you have is what it is.
Do you have experience with Audi TTRS HA strut towers being replaced by Audi? You sell reinforcement plates. My strut towers are bent up, but an Audi dealer does not want to touch them. The price would be high compared to the value of the car. Yes, this is a common problem, especially on track-driven cars or any cars that have hit potholes. That's why we sell the reinforcement plates. If yours are cracked, I don't see a way, and they basically have to take the whole engine out of the car and then go in and remove that whole strut tower assembly from the frame horn and undo all the rivets. It's probably would total the car, I see at this point. I think I knew a few people that had it done under warranty way back when. If I were you, I might, and I'm not saying this is a proven thing that I'm strongly recommending, but I don't know the current state of your strut tower or how bad it is. But if it's a relatively small crack or something like that, I would say install the reinforcement plates, which will kind of lock everything in place, kind of take it from there.
Was it bent or cracked? If it was just a bend, then
what was it? Do you remember?
I thought it was just a bend. I didn't think he said it was cracked.
You think you can look in the history?
But yeah,
if they're bent, then install our plates and crank them down. If they're bent, okay, good. Well, then just install our plates.
Yeah.
That will prevent any further bending, and
they should flatten it out a little.
It might. It's interesting. It's a whole cast. It's cast aluminum.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was stamped.
No, the whole front of the car is aluminum, and it's just like a big cast strut assembly.
It's so bent up that they don't fit. Is what he said.
Oh.
So, and I think you're in a tough spot.
I think it's still worth looking to see, can the plates be modified to fit or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that car's just not worth that much money. It's worth.
Hey, don't say that.
What are they worth? 25.
Whatever I'm going to try to sell mine for 6 months.
Yeah. But anyways, sorry to hear. Frankly, Audi should compensate you because it's a factory issue. I don't believe like the 8S, they don't do that.
No.
One last question.
Do the track spec and camber correcting arms work on stock suspension for the B8? Yeah, they do. Yeah.
They do fit, although the alignment adjustability range is going to change based on the height of the car. So it's going to move things around as the car goes down. Right. When you raise or lower your car, you go up, down. Right. That's the camber.
Right.
So
why don't we touch on this since we did that video last week?
How's the development of the PCV catch can for the B9 5.0T? We are basically done with engineering. We're currently in the manufacturing process, so we don't have a release date, but obviously we want to bring it to market as quickly as possible. There's a huge need for this, and our solution would completely eliminate the potential of it ever happening again with lifetime reliable, motorsport grade products. And great response to that video and to everything. You know, we did a video last week describing, you know, the issue. I don't believe any other tuning company has come out like we have, you know, to really spread information about what the problem is.
Yeah. We know for a fact that other companies have experienced the same.
It's since before we knew about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to let you all know and make you aware of why it's an important thing to take care of quickly.
Yep. All right, cheers. I think we're out of time for this week. I think we should be back next week, as usual.
See you all.
Yes. Nice job this week, Nick. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.